The first time we ever experienced the gameplay of an extraction shooter was in Ubisoft's The Division, all the way back in 2016. The basic premise was that the best gear you could hope for in this game, that was all about getting your hands on the best loot, was contained inside this walled off area of the map called the Dark Zone. You go in, fight some tough enemies for the gear you need, but unlike the rest of the game, the gear that you picked up doesn't belong to you. Not yet. You need to get that gear out of this hostile area and back to somewhere safe. You need to extract it. But something feels very different here. For one thing, it's really quiet. There are no signs of life, no music, no passerby. There are other players here, real people fighting to get the same loot you're trying to get. Only here, in the Dark Zone, these other players can turn on you at any time. And when you and these other players fight, whoever wins gets to go home with everything. The loser? You get sent back to a safe area. But all that gear you've been gathering, all of that is gone. You're starting over from square one. This video isn't about the Dark Zone though. It's been almost 10 years since The Division released, and since then, lots of games have released trying to capitalize on the extraction shooter formula to varying levels of success. We're here today to talk about two of the most recent ones to be announced, and we've had the pleasure of being able to test out over the past 2 weeks, Bungie's Marathon and Embark's Arc Raiders. While we discuss, gameplay from both of these games will be playing in the background to show you the similarities and differences between them. The one thing that hasn't changed in 10 years of iteration on the extraction shooter formula that I just described is that the core gameplay is really divisive. On the one hand, if you've ever played one, like really sunk your teeth into it, you know that these games have tension. Something is really at stake if you manage to get that extraction or not, so the atmosphere is incredible, leading to a great feeling when you actually pull it off. But on the other hand, some people hate the idea of losing their loot and all of their progress to another player so much that they won't even try an extraction shooter to begin with. These people will never know if they would like the game or not, and they're perfectly okay with that. That's crazy, right? A couple of years ago, when one of the absolute best games ever made, Baldur's Gate 3, came out, a lot of people chose not to even give it a chance because it was turn-based. I didn't understand it then, and I don't now. I thought gaming was about trying new things and new experiences, kind of shooting yourself in the foot to want something new, but only playing what's already familiar to you. But let me get back on topic. The general hesitation that comes with describing this PvEvP gameplay is what makes any game with this type of setup pretty niche. You're making a new game that right off the bat more than half of the general audience has no desire to play. That just seems like bad business, right? When Arc Raiders was first revealed with a trailer during the 2021 Games Awards ceremony, it was described as a co-op looter shooter, like Destiny or The Division's PvE modes. You work together with other players, not against them. Sounds cool, right? Except this type of game doesn't generate hype. It doesn't get people talking. Despite it being announced 4 years ago, most people paid Arc Raiders no attention at all until its gameplay was reworked into an extraction shooter, and last week's technical test was released and people got to play it for themselves. Essentially, Embark chose to abandon the PvE only crowd in favor of the much louder, competitive PvP crowd. The streamers, the content creators, the hype train. It looks like Marathon followed a pretty similar path. When Marathon was first announced, most people figured it would be a PvE shooter like its 1994 predecessor. But somewhere along the development process, Bungie figured an extraction shooter was the thrill they wanted to chase with this game. Let's be clear here. Whether these games released as big budget PvE only or PvEvP games, they will still have struggles they have to overcome. PvE only games are great to engage with when they're fresh and new, but that shine wears off quickly. Players will run through whatever content is in the game and demand more right away. What took developers years to make will be completely run through in just days, and then what? How long will it take for new content? What will the new content be like, and how much will it cost? Look at Monster Hunter Wilds. So much great content in there, but how long can it keep a dedicated player occupied? Well, The general answer to this in most big budget games has been PvP, because unlike PvE, PvP doesn't require nearly as much constant new content in order to entice players to jump back in. Going back for more is just the nature of player versus player gameplay. It doesn't matter if we're talking about a sports game like Madden or reaching the lighthouse in Destiny. Players want to get better, win, and look good doing it. So of course, all of these companies not only see the good in injecting some PvP into their PvE, they also know that at some point, the extraction shooter genre will likely have a game that transcends its niche and becomes a mainstream success. Maybe a success on the level of how Fortnite has transcended battle royales, or Minecraft has long since left other survival games behind. That type of success comes maybe once a generation, and extraction shooters haven't had one break out in that way quite yet. So here come the new challengers, ready to give it a shot, even if it is a long one. It may be obvious to most gamers that some genres are never going to be more than niche, but the fame and fortune of being the next big thing is really hard for a game publisher to ignore. What am I really trying to say here? When I play these extraction shooters, it is fun, but in a short-term kind of way. It's hard to imagine sticking with this kind of gameplay loop for the long term, when the rewards and progression are so ephemeral. If this really is what the game devs at Embark and Bungie want to make, if this is really what they're passionate about, I think that will become evident in the months and years after these games launch. But personally, having tried both, one sticks out to me as trying harder to deliver something new, even if that is almost purely visual, and that is Marathon. Bungie has been setting shooter standards for like 30 years. I think they could easily have followed the trend and made Marathon more casually appealing to look at, but they chose to design their game to challenge the norm, and I respect that. I kept coming back for more. I can sort of see why people enjoy celebrating the success of games they like. The developers should know the work that they do is appreciated. But why rejoice when it looks like one of these games is gonna fail? Does it really bring you joy to know that a game so many people worked so hard on is getting dunked on by a bunch of people that don't even want to play it? And if that toxicity leads to downsizing at the studio, that's even more developers that have lost their jobs over the past few years. No matter what way you look at it, the loss of tens of thousands of creative minds is exactly the reason why people are constantly looking for where the next big thing will come from, and instead they're getting the same game remade over and over. So when you look at how people seem to be very mid on Marathon in the content creation space, and then were super hyped about Arc Raiders when that was testing just a week later, you have to remember that what you are really looking at is people whose job it is to get views. The easiest way to do that is to follow trends. Arc Raiders looks good, no one can deny it. But to use words like, oh, insane, game changing, it's peak, it's doing everyone a disservice. The game doesn't do anything different than any of the other games that are just like it do. And they're coming out at around the same time. I mean, I've interjected clips in here from completely different extraction shooters that are coming out around the same time as Arc Raiders, but I bet most of you couldn't even tell the difference. The hyperbole people use to create content about games should inform, not sway you into liking something over something else. Cause only you can decide what games really move you. If you saw Arc Raiders style and really made you feel something, go have fun with that. Post up your vids, I'll be glad to watch you enjoying yourself. But for us, it's Marathon that really stuck out. And just because it didn't seem to excite as many people as the other games didn't matter to us. That's the one we'll play this fall when they come out. I wish both Embark and Bungie the best of luck, because the road to long-term success won't be easy for either of them. See you next time.